Hi guys, and welcome back to Sheddy's Kitchen. I'm Sheddy. Today we're looking at making a wonderful recipe that is both vegan friendly and it's perfect for you slimmers out there. It is a Bhindi Tori Masala curry, which equates to okra or ladyfinger, you might know it as curry. It goes perfectly well with our chapatti recipes. It also goes with our paratha recipe as well. So are you ready? Let's get cooking. So for this recipe we're going to start off with 250 ml of sunflower oil, $250 of chopped onions, and we've just sliced them thinly like this over here. One teaspoon of red chili powder, ¾ teaspoons of cooking salt, sticking to 3/4 because if you add more than that it can make the dish quite salty. Half a teaspoon of turmeric powder, so that's haldi. Six garlic cloves that have been sliced, so you can see we've sliced them thinly lengthways in this example over here. Four medium-sized tomatoes that have been chopped. One teaspoon of coriander powder. Four green chilies, and what we've done is we've just sliced these lengthways, as you can see, in halves. $500 of okra. So these are known as okra. They are known also, okra is also known as ladyfingers as well. So that's what you could ask for. In our language, we call them Bhindi Tori. And lastly, 300 ml of water. We will be adding water in between as well to the recipe to make sure that the ingredients don't stick to the pan, but you will need 300 ml for the end. So you want to start off with a nice deep pan. I always find using a bigger pan is better because it's easier to mix the ingredients a bit later on. It gets quite hard to work against the food that's actually in there when it's cooking. Start off with a high heat, so I'll just get that going now. Okay, that's nice and high. And to that we want to add the sunflower oil. And we're going to have to leave that in there for a bit just to start warming up before we add the onions next. Right, I can start to see little bubbles starting to rise to the surface of the oil, so I know it'll be time in a moment to add the onions to that. That's what you're looking out for, is the indicator that the oil is warm enough. So little bubbles starting to pop up to the surface. I'll give it a tiny moment more before we add the onions to that. Okay, onions can go in now. And we want to make sure we mix some onions into there. I'm going to leave them in there to brown very slightly. Make sure you don't get too brown on the onions, because you don't want the onions to burn and stick to the bottom of the pan. So just give that a mix. Okay, you can see the onions are getting quite a tinge of brown around the edges there. We're going to add the next part of the ingredients. So we've got over here, we need to add 1 teaspoon one teaspoon of the red chili powder, 3/4 teaspoon of your cooking salt, 1/2 teaspoon of the turmeric powder. This is your haldi. And we're going to add into that the sliced garlic cloves, and just you need to really mix this. It gets quite concentrated, and we've opened up a window to let the room aerate a bit. You can get your extractor fan on if you want. I've also kept close by a glass of water, so if I feel any of this mixture sticking to the bottom of the pan, I'm going to keep adding a tiny bit of water to prevent that happening. Only do that if you really feel it sticking to the bottom. You will get some sticking, but if it gets quite sticky, you need to add water in there. Introduce that water in there to prevent that sticking from happening. It prevents burning of your onions and parts of the ingredients that are in there. I'm going to do that for a moment, a few minutes or so. Keep mixing that for about 2-3 minutes. I reckon you'll be mixing that for. But keep an eye out for that sticking. So it's been a few minutes now, and the onions are still getting browner in there. What I'm going to add to this next is going to be the tomatoes that are chopped. So we'll add that in. That will introduce some water into the pan as well. And I'm going to give that a quick mix, and then add coriander powder to that. I'll give that a nice mix. A lot of water adding in there now. Add a teaspoon of the coriander powder. And give that a nice mix. Keep mixing that, make sure, there's still a lot of water in here, so I'm not getting any sticking to the bottom of the pan. The tomatoes are getting relatively mushy, that's what you want in there. But keep mixing to prevent it sticking to the bottom of the pan. And I've still got my glass of water nearby if I need that. If you find it does start sticking, do add that water, don't worry about that, it will evaporate off. This has been about 5 minutes now, and you can see the tomatoes have really broken down in here. It's a nice mush, that's what you're looking for over there. And it's time for us to add our next ingredient. So to that I'm going to add the green chilies. We'll just drop them in. And also the okra, so the ladyfingers. These are going to go in as well. Notice that I've chopped them down into approximately thirds. You don't want them too large because it will take a bit longer to cook. So I'll pop the okra into there. I'm going to give that a really nice mix. I'm going to mix that for approximately about 2 minutes. Really get stuck in and and make sure that the okra are coated with all the lovely spices that you have in there, and the onion as well. Give that a real mix for approximately 2 minutes. If you find there's any sticking in this process at the bottom, add a dash of water to prevent that happening. So it dries up very, very quickly. You can see it dries very, very quickly. I'm going to add a tiny bit of water to that to prevent sticking. Just a little dash, and give that a nice mix. A few minutes doing that. It's been about 3 minutes or so, so I'm going to get my 300 ml of water and add that. Now what we need to do with water once added is we're going to allow the water to start to boil and reduce down. So I'll give that a little mix. I'll allow that water to start to come to a boil and reduce down. When it gets to quite a low level, and I'll show you what to look out in terms of water levels, we will at that point drop to a low heat and put the lid onto the dish and leave it for about 5 minutes on a low heat to steam away. We'll come back to it after 5 minutes and give it a mix again, and then leave it on a low heat with the lid on for about 7 minutes longer. So I will give you the mix. I'll mention them instructions again as we get to that point, but the first instance at this moment, we're allowing this water now to boil, come to a boil and start reducing down. You see the water starting to boil there now. It's absolutely fine. Give it a little mix. Try not to break up the ladyfingers, so just give it a stir from the outside edge and around like that. That's it. The water's still boiling, and hopefully it will very soon start to evaporate off, and that will reduce down in there. So the waters, you can see the water's coming quite far down now. Hopefully you can see there the water, there's not a huge amount left, it's just the onions and the rest of the mixture. What we're going to do at this point is give it one mix. I'm going to drop this pan onto a low heat now and pop the lid on and leave it for 5 minutes, but I need to come back to it in 5 minutes time to give it a stir to make sure of that. So we'll pop that lid on and drop that onto a low heat, and then we'll come back 5 minutes time. So it's been 5 minutes, and we're going to have a look at how this is actually getting on. So there's a quick tester you can do over here just to check if your okra are ready, and we've left it 5 minutes. Now sometimes when you buy okra, so your ladyfingers, they can actually be a lot tougher, so they take longer for them to actually soften down. But in our experience, a good way to check it is quite simply by using a knife. You can see I've cut through with that quite easily. Cut through quite easily through that okra, which means ours are actually made, they've actually come to the right point of being cooked, and that's just slipped straight off, nice and easy. So if you find that it's still quite hard and it's quite difficult to cook through the okra, you would put the lid back on and you would leave that to carry on steaming for about 5 more minutes or so, maybe 3-4 minutes. Do it by judgment to how tough you want the okra to be. Ours already, there's still a fair bit of water in there, so what I'm going to do at this stage now is I'm going to leave the lid off. I'm going to put it back up to a medium to high heat and let that water boil off until I've seen the water has gone, and then it'll be ready. As you can see, the water has completely gone down now. That is now ready. So I'm going to turn off take that off heat completely, and we're finished. I'm really hoping there's some left for me today after I get my parents' approval. So I better go get that now. I've come back empty-handed. Looks like I'll be getting takeaway tonight because parent seal of approval met. For many more videos, if you want to make sure you follow any up-to-date recipes that I have, please join our site. Click that notification bell. You need to click subscribe as well. And I'll see you soon.